Okay, Christina,
No worries.
here's the deal.
Yeah.
You know me and Woody really well. And we had this entire discussion yesterday about this call in our game. We were at CBS. It was Gotham hosting Chicago. 0-0 game ultimately. But him and I were talking about this after the game as well. And I liked how he presented it because I think there is an interesting discussion about this foul that was called a penalty kick and then went to VAR. And I thought it was too long, in my opinion, and I think there's always a conversation of what is taking so long, why is it taking so long? So I'd be curious about that thought process for you as well. But let me just set it up as like, the thing that was interesting to Chris and I is when a player doesn't go down because they're able to keep their balance, and then it is called a penalty kick and then rescinded, what's going into this and like, what's the thought process for the referees and VAR? Because here's what happened. Lily Reel, left back for Gotham, versus Jamise Joseph, forward/winger for Chicago. And Jamise Joseph takes Lily Reel on inside the 18-yard box and cuts, like, they essentially, like, gets past her, right? But because Jamise Joseph has such good balance and is able to kind of bypass the challenge, Lily Reel's the one that falls over. Jamise Joseph, Lily Reel's left leg does get stuck in front of Jamise Joseph. She's able to keep her balance through that, get a shot off, and in real time, you're just thinking, okay, she got the shot off, and then it's like play on. But then it's called a penalty kick. And then there's this like long delay and we're looking at it, right? And then the referee hasn't even been sent to the monitor yet. And it just feels like, okay, they should either be making the decision and telling her or get to the monitor a lot quicker. But the conversation is like, okay, you can barely see the touch from Lily Reel. I mean, I think she maybe gets the ball like the slightest of little like direct misdirection, or you can see the ball move slightly. But also when a player is like Jamise Joseph has the qualities to be able to keep her ground, then and then you call it, but then it takes so long to rescind it. I'm just curious we didn't even know what was going to be happening at this point in time. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Did I paint the picture enough for you? And I think you've seen the clip.
You painted the picture, and everyone, welcome to the Soccer Podcast USA. I think this
we
is our
need some
fourth restart.
answers.
We need answers. It's been a long weekend. Excited for this. And guess what? It only took 3 shows, Lindsay, for us to get into VAR, pronounced VAR, not VAR for our fans out there. It's
Wait, have
it's
I been
good
saying
questions.
VAR? On television I was saying VAR, but like
it's
here
so
I feel
funny,
like saying VAR.
Like, the perspective of all of this is like when we did VAR training, right? So MLS was the first one to ever implement VAR into like an actual game in that first year. And we were trained for a year before. Howard Webb was the person. FIFA came in and they were so insistent. They were like, it is VAR, not VAR, not anything else. It's VAR. Don't mispronounce it. So it's been like ingrained in my head. So like so many people call it VAR, and I've even caught myself calling it VAR, and I'm like, oh, but because it stands for video system.
That's a whole nother podcast. Do not call it PKs and do not call it VAR. It's a penalty. It's VAR.
That's called therapy for me, guys. So yeah, there are some stories on that one. But like, these are interesting conversations and good conversations because like for me, my kind of the biggest point as to why I do the referee analyst role is like, you, Chris, you guys have covered football all around the world, the highest levels of football. You've played at the highest levels, you personally. No offense, Chris. But then there's others that I work with, and they always have these questions, and they're legitimate football questions, right? That it's like, and that's where like Terry Henry the other day, he's like this little referee island that you guys go to in your secret society. And I was like, ooh, all right, we got a secret society. Like, where is that speakeasy? Because I am not getting drinks from there. But, I get the concern, and again, in this particular play that you're talking about, right, with Lily, et cetera, going through, there was the slightest contact. And when we talk about like this world of modern football 3.0, sorry, I'm like going back and forth, and the plays are in front of me, is like modern football 3.0, like we have all this technology, but we still need the officials to be good on the field for the original decision, because if we're not getting those decisions correct on the field, then it turns into confusion, right? And so in this play, like when I went back and played it, I was like, okay, there. Like, this shouldn't be a foul in the first place, right? And, ultimately that wasn't There was a little bit of a delay. And then that also brings to that question is like, are we giving, effectively advantage in this play too? So are we giving the player 2 bites at the apple, right? Yes, they got fouled, but then they continue to be able to play. There is no advantage signal from the referee onside, right? It's just kind of, we call it a wait and see moment. And then she hits the defender. What is that? I think that's Sonnet there in the chest. And then is able to then indicate for a penalty. But that's kind of the confusion part, because just the initial play in the actual football, a little bit on the inside, player, for lack of a better term, the defender, I think you said it was Lily, is already kind of in that position. So if you equate it to like American basketball, like her foot's pretty much set.
Yep.
And it's not like she made an extension of the leg out to trip her, right? She was kind of in an expected position for the defender. And then you got the attacker just kind of running into her. So it's like, who really initiated that contact? So the decision ultimately initially should never have been a penalty, from just understanding like the body language and the body movements. And this is where we say like higher level football understanding makes you appreciate where an expected play should be. And I truly would and advocate, yes, referees go back and they look at film and videotape and footage, but I would actually advocate that we can get trained similar. Anytime I had an opportunity, I had IMG in my backyard. Anytime I talked to a goalkeeper coach for the U.S. national teams and the youth, I'd always ask him, because I don't play goalkeeper, right? I've played every other position. Like, how do you come out for challenges and stuff? And I think that's the one level that I would like to fit in for referee training, is them being taught like the tactical and the technical skill sets of what the players are being taught as well, so that we have an idea of those movements. But doesn't answer any of your questions. I note that. So ultimately,
no, I like the thought of like who initiates the contact. Is Lily Real already kind of an established position? I mean, I think that there is great insight. One other thing that I'll add is, you said, and I'm sure you're going to get to this, but you were like, okay, the initial decision shouldn't have been a penalty kick, right? But then it is. And then to me, just going off of what you said, I feel like that could be established from VAR in a minute. But this went on for a significant amount of time before they even go to the monitor. So okay, so I'll just leave it there, because obviously you understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, and I think this is what it comes down to, the questions. Like, people ask all the time, like, why is it taking so long? And I took a look at the play leading to, right? You, as a VAR and an assistant VAR, you have to look at what we call the attacking phase of play, which which is APP. And it's like basically everything leading up to that play within this window, and that's like a possession window. Whether there's something in there. Here, there's not. There's no offside decision necessarily. I mean, she's a little bit off, but I could take a quick look at it without setting lines, and I'm confident she's not offside. Obviously they have more angles than I do, but so you're taking a look to see potential offsides is being reviewed in this decision. And then your next look here would be, is there a potential handling from the last defender, Emily? Did it hit her arm or not? Didn't it hit her chest, right? So you have to just go through these protocols of saying yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Then you get to the original decision of, is this a penalty alone in the first place? I could see, I don't know if it's a pro, it's or a con, but it's probably because I've done this for quite long, especially reading off of the monitor since the VAR introduction and then now doing it on TV. Like, my gut instincts are pretty much correct 9 out of 10 times when I first see the clip. That 1 out of 10 is like, hey, I have a feeling, show me a different angle. Ooh, that was, clearly a complete miss, and that other angle was a bit more deceptive. So it really comes down to experience, to be quite honest. And, one of the things I've seen the conversations about, right, like, oh, the referees, I know the Portland game last week, and there was a lot of complaints in the media about the refereeing. And I know even sometimes in our league, there's complaints about the refereeing. And the reality is, we just got to continue, and nobody likes to hear it, myself included, right? When I see some decisions, it's like, the refereeing just needs to develop, but it's going to take years. It's going to take a solid 5 to 10 years, and there's focus and effort, and now there's finances in it, and now it could become a full-time job. It's still not a full-time job, except when you get to Major League Soccer as a center referee. So, like, there's still a huge gap of just basic necessities of resources and training, and everyone's getting their experience right now in our games that matter. So that's kind of a scary thing. And now you take the element of how many times can you pull someone off the field and put them in the monitor in the VAR booth, and then now you're removing that experience on the field. So then you need the new crop of referees to be on the field, and it just turns into this thing that, shout out to colleagues, et cetera, who have to deal with the situation. It's not an easy situation. So here, like, I could tell you can confidently, I can name like 10 people, but they're at the highest levels, right? They've done World Cups, they've done, championship finals, they've done all this, that we all would look at this and in a second we'd be like, that's not a penalty. And we'd be like, all right, give me the 5 angles. I recommend a review. And then we would shoot those angles down. But that all comes from experience. and I don't know who was the VAR in this on this game, but that's where the speed and the efficiency comes. And I know even like I get complaints all the time about Premier League and PGMO and what's going on over there. That I don't think it's a lack of experience. I think it's the culture mindset of saying, what do we want as a foul in English football, right? And they kind of get hit a little harder in English football. So I think you're fighting maybe more of a philosophy here, but I think here it's more of a learning curve in some of our lower level divisions. And I would say lower level, just at the end of the day, are, you know, the places where everyone's still growing and getting their experience before they either hit MLS. Or, I mean, there's a lot of really good referees on NWSL and USL Super League, which is a Division One league. It's just, it's still a huge training ground, unfortunately. So that would be kind of the delay.
Yeah, I think that's a completely fair answer. I mean, the sport in general is growing rapidly, right? So it's just like everyone trying to navigate in so many different ways on how to keep up with it, how to catch up with it. So I think that's totally fair. I guess to take it one step further, and then we don't need to like continue to have the whole the whole show be VAR, but
we probably get a lot more viewers.
Yeah, I'm curious though what you would be asking, like what you would want to hear from Woody and I in that moment, because or is it just like what you were saying, which is like, okay, where is the contact initiated? Does Lily Real have an established position? Yes, Jamise Joseph has a skill set to be able to get through that challenge, but also Lily Real was already there. So is that the conversation that you would be having, even if it's difficult to tell if there's a slightest of touch, right, with the ball from Lily Real, she's already in that position.
Yep. And I mean, I think you guys hit on the head is like you deconstruct the play, right? Like as soon as this happens, you know, someone can either go back into the ISO and say, hey, like there's, you know, maybe a potential offside that they're checking leading up to it, right? But it's pretty clear, but that'll take some time. And then you get into the analysis of saying, hey, you know, Lily really does hit the inside left of her boot, right, when she extends it. So is the referee or the VAR up there concerned with overturning the penalty because there was contact with the ball prior to contact with the player? You're like, well, there's one level. And then here's the second level that the referee or the VAR is probably either finding or trying to get additional clips, is to show that the movement is into Lily Real and not into the extended leg, but pretty much kind of really into like the inner side of her thigh, like into kind of her core body part.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that clearly shows she didn't like step into her path, but she was already in that path. So that conversation by you two is probably one of the most important, because it's saying like, here are the considerations from a football perspective, from football understanding, that the referees are now taking a look at and making a subjective decision saying, is this still enough for me to become involved, or is there enough gray area for it to leave and stay with the referee on the field? But like you said, your first instinct was like, that's not even a penalty. And you're right.
Yeah, well, like, when it was called, we were like, wait, what? And then I'm thinking, okay, well, it's taking this long. Then this is going to be called because there's the slightest of touches. But then for it to not be called, it's like, well, what took so long? So it felt like 15 minutes. We were like, okay, we're not leaving the stadium. Golf is going to take over before we get out of this 2-hour window.
No, I know. And that's the thing you should say, like, this is so slow. We're about to hit into golf, right? So, but I think it is important, because if everybody at home, and that's why I always ask I know we do this stuff, it's just like, I'm like, ask the question, because if you have the question, everybody else at home has a question, except for the small set of referees who might know what's going on, right? And at the end of the day, that's not all the viewers. So ask the questions, break down into those analysis, and then just apply the football understanding of where they're probably wobbling back and forth upstairs with, to be quite honest. And then truly, like, if the referee gets to the monitor and, you know, I don't know if she was or whatnot, might be like, I don't know if that is, can you show me some more clips, right? Then that referee gets that time to ask, do you have another angle, and they might be flip-flopping. So sometimes you have to become an advocate upstairs at the VAR booth, and you got to protect some referees. You're like, I promise you, this is a clear and obvious error. So, but referee makes the final decision on that one. Oh, love it.
That feels insightful. I mean, I like to sigh at the end, because that is what it feels like. Okay, here we go, everybody. Buckle
it's
up.
So funny, because like this will be released afterwards too, so I think I'm allowed to talk about it, but I'm not sure. But it's like my club of all clubs got the first ever red card in the USL Super League.
Really?
Yeah, yesterday. I was our captain.
Way to go. Actually, that's a victory. Good job.
Poor Amber Brooks, her head got like chopped off. Like I was getting text messages from people because I have friends that nickname our captain. I already told her earlier today. Her nickname is Pocket Rocket because she just like launches out of everything.
Yo, that's
but her leg got
Pocket
really
Rocket
high.
means
Like,
other things too, Christina. So
aww. I
this
don't
is
know
not
these
safe for this
things.
show, though. It's not safe for this show.
I know. I was like, I don't know these things. But so like this morning I've been dealing with really the conversation of like, do we appeal this? And it's and like I said, it's Thursday. The appeal period ends in about 5 hours anyways. But it was an interesting conversation where it's like from the decision in and of itself, it's a supportable red. It's red as all can be. But then from like and this is the first time I've ever had to do this from a management perspective, do I appeal it to support the player? Do I appeal it to support the technical staff? Like, what are the requirements? Like, what's considered a frivolous appeal? It's a really interesting morning, I can tell you that. I was like, it wasn't something I had on my things, list of things to do, nor did I ever think I would ever be appealing or potentially appealing cards. But then I kind of
what
ended
an
up,
honor for your team. Good job. Good
then
job.
when I ended up erring on the side of, if I appeal something, you better know I'm winning. So this one I knew I wasn't going to win. So I was like, never mind.
I'm not going to bat with you. I'm just going to let you win.
Yeah. Well, you should be on the independent review panel.
Okay, put me on it. Put me on it.
But aside from that, how was your weekend? I know we jumped up for
Yeah,
but how
great.
was your weekend?
Listen, before you even jumped on, I was chit-chatting about the wild fun weekend I had, just because I had more games than I usually do, but we had 4-3 victory of Angel City over Washington on Friday night, which is just like, goodness gracious, great for TV, so fun, just back and forth, 7 goals. And then Woody and I had DC United on Saturday, and then we had the game that we were just talking about yesterday in New York. So traveling around, but I mean, 2 games were at Audi Field and the other was in New York. So it like works out perfectly.
And then you just go straight on home to
it's just
Philly.
like, we're in a fun time too of these seasons, I feel like, because it's still early enough where teams can like, regardless of what situation they're in, it still feels like there's so much to be playing for. And then also you're starting to see like, okay, things are starting to play out. Like in WSL, there's like, we've had Kansas City, we've had Orlando, both looked like they were going to separate from the pack. And then Kansas City, 2 losses in 2 weekends. So Orlando, 2 losses as well. Washington conceded 7 goals in their last 2 games, where the first 5 only conceded 3. So, I mean, it's kind of what you expect. Pure chaos and bananas, but still a lot to play for. And here we are. Oh, our main
pure
man.
chaos and bananas.
Jimmy
I rock
freaking
pure.
Conrad.
What's up?
Listen, we've already had some
sir.
great guests, but don't tell anybody. You're the best.
I appreciate that.
I love it because everyone always gets on me about Jimmy's setup, and I just realized I didn't even put my mic up the whole time. So sorry, producers. Thank you, Jimmy, for the reminder of how amazing your setup is.
Oh yeah, no problem. I aim to please.
Oh my goodness! Look at that face.
I told Christina that I wasn't expecting to be on camera today, so I didn't shave. I haven't brushed my hair. Not that I've really ever brushed my hair. But I'm great. How are you, Lori?
Great. It's really good to see you, and I'm very into the scruff look. So
Thank you.
Just pretend like you didn't,
Yeah.
Kind of like the look where you don't really need to be
I'm going for
clean
it.
shaven.
That's right.
Yeah, great to see you.
Likewise.
In a selfish pursuit, I told Jimmy not to shave just so I didn't look as bad. So it was like, if he looks worse than me, and then I don't have to put makeup on.
I love it. That's amazing.
All right, so we have our favorite U.S. men's national team player with us today, everyone. Jimmy Conradinho. Are you still going by that? I love it.
I always go by Conrad. Listen, I played center back for a long time, and in my heart, I was a box-to-box Brazilian midfielder. So I've given myself a Brazilian nickname. So I'm Conradinho.
Okay.
Yeah.
Listen, it's perfect. It's perfect.
So I also self-admittedly have like 0 energy. So I was like, who has more energy than anyone can handle? It's this man. It's this man.
I can't confirm or deny any rumors, but yes, I have some energy.
Listen, Christina, to witness this guy, Conradinho, in Australia, right? For for Fox 2 summers ago
Yeah.
for the Women's World Cup, and the amount of work him, Melissa Ortiz, Leslie Osborne did for the digital show was just beyond phenomenal. So fun. And everybody's like, towards the end, no one's like dragging because like it's just like you are filled with so much emotion with the tournament. It's so fun, right? I mean, we're staying in this beautiful hotel overlooking the Opera House and the Sydney Bridge, but like you just kept going. You were working, you were going on runs, you were doing all the things, you were hosting these shows. Literally, you guys were on for, especially at the beginning of the tournament, was like 20 out of the 24 hours of the day.
Yeah,
and it was absurd.
It is, but you're in it, right? I mean, you get excited for the next game. You're like, oh wow, we got Nigeria playing Japan or whatever it is. You just get like amped up for what's going to happen on the field. And yeah, you think you get tired of watching soccer, but I don't. I love all the nuance and subtleties and the details of the game.
So like Jimmy, like I told him, he's like, what are we talking about? I'm like, whatever we want to talk about, just something soccer related. And guess what? You're soccer related, but like, how do you do it? Like to Lori's point, you did the show with Fox, right? I'll let you explain that a little bit more in detail, but how much content and how much basically production value are you able to come up with the substance of your shows that you're doing? And you do quite a shows long, a bunch of things. So how much creativity element do you get?
Well, as it pertains to Fox, we were doing pre and post game shows for every single World Cup game. And we did it in Doha, in Qatar for the Men's World Cup. And then we parlayed that momentum into the Women's World Cup in Sydney. Lori's not joking. Our hotel was ridiculous. It was so nice. You'd open up your blinds and there was a Sydney Opera House right there. It was.
I remember she posted it every morning. What song was that?
Special time.
Enya, only time.
Yeah, exactly. I get it.
Every morning.
Unreal. A really special
Jen Franske,
experience.
shout out.
Yeah, it's a good shout. And so with regard to that, you're kind of when you're in a big event like that, you're trying to establish a rhythm with the people that you're working with, a rapport, and trying to find the beats that are going to help you kind of lay a foundation for the whole run of the month. So it's a little bit different than kind of the day-to-day stuff that I do with CBS or I do on my own social media stuff. I've admittedly don't post as much as I used to. What's interesting is I just got accepted to the UEFA coaching course, so I am.
Oh yes, this is perfect. 'Cause I was going to ask you about the coaching badges. Okay,
yeah,
great.
so
I'm
I'm shifting in terms of my attention. I'm shifting kind of where I want to spend my time, and not to say listen, I love the media and I love being involved and talking about the game, but I also am very passionate about how I can give back to the game in a different way. And so when I got accepted, I'm slowly tiptoeing in that direction. As I start to kind of manage how I want my media career to go as well. And obviously, I'm looking forward to the 2026 World Cup that we're hosting here in the States. So there's going to be a fun build-up here for the next year. And I didn't answer your question directly, but that's part of my charm. Just saying that. Yeah.
So, yes, it leaves us all on the edge of our seats. So, like, who is this guy really, right? Like,
Exactly.
we don't actually
don't
know
really
Jimmy.
know.
So,
Smoke and mirrors.
Yes, exactly. It's just all a facade. No, but okay. I do want to ask you about the coaching in a second, because this is something you and I actually had a conversation about that in Sydney. And actually since then, I think when we talked on the phone and you were talking about how interested you are in coaching. So we'll get back to that. But I am curious because you just mentioned we do have, it feels like we've been saying we've had summer of soccer for like the last 3 years, which has actually been the case, because it's just like there is so much soccer to be had. And every summer it's like, it's summer of soccer. And I'm like, pretty sure that was the case last year, the year before, but here we are. So we have summer soccer this summer as well. Next summer, obviously huge. And then the Women's World Cup next. So forever and ever. But what does that look like for you then going forward? Women's Euros this summer. There's also the Gold Cup. What is your thoughts on and what is it going to look like for you in terms of the media?
Yeah, mine starts early. I get in and I go to Belfast in Northern Ireland to do my coaching course in person for a week in mid-May.
Okay.
So a couple weeks. And I go right from there to New York for CBS to cover the Champions League final in studio for Golasso Network.
Oh, amazing.
And then I leave straight from
I'll
there.
see you there.
Okay, great. Awesome. Then we can heckle you in real time, in person. It'd be great. and then I go straight from New York to TST, the $1 Million Winner Take All.
I'll see you there.
I'll see you there. And
Do I need to show up? I don't have a team this year, but I feel like I should
You
just
should.
show up and heckle you,
need to
guys.
show up. You need to
Okay.
show up.
So I'll be coming
I'll
back.
VAR.
That'll be year 3 for me. And so yeah, you're doing different things for every. Like, I'm gonna document my experience, right? Doing the coaching course, and I'm doing it with Mike Grella and Charlie Davies, some familiar names to the U.S.
Oh, amazing.
audience.
Yep.
And then we have a bunch of guys. It's for former players, so League One and League Two guys that are involved, currently playing. So that'll be a fun course. And then, then so you have a certain type of content, and I think a certain type of tone and style that's respectful, not necessarily quote unquote taking the piss per se, right? You're just kind of showing what you're doing and documenting those effects and maybe having some laughs with Charlie and Mike. And then you pivot to Champions League. Then all of a sudden that takes on a different type of voice. You have to have more of an opinion. How do you think teams are going to play? How do you think they're going to perform? So you got to get into that type of headspace. And then with TST, yeah, now you can kind of, run your mouth a little bit, and they want you to do that, right? That's going to create headlines and create energy and enthusiasm and momentum around the tournament. And I think we have a team that can compete, as everybody does when they enter into the tournament. And then straight from there, I get back, and my kids are finishing school, so you got their little graduations, and then so then you put that hat on. Then my wife and I are going to take a quick trip somewhere, and then back to work, right? Because we have the Gold Cup, we have the FIFA Club World Cup.
Yep.
And we have all these other things going on. So yeah, and then I'm an ambassador for Target. So I go work with them for the USA Cup, which is one of the biggest youth soccer tournaments in North America, in Blaine, Minnesota. Shout out to Blaine. And just north of Minneapolis. And so I've got
Mall
all
of America.
Yeah, that's right, Mall of America. And so it's interesting, like every week I'm kind of taking on a different, let's say persona, but I have to take on a different type of style of content that fits what I'm doing in that particular time. And that's where I think you can get creative, Christina, right? Is that you can kind of bring your personality into each one to either amplify or to bring or shed light on whatever it is that you're talking about.
Yeah, big shout out to Target and the tournament, and you for also acknowledging the referees.
I
You
love
guys
it.
do that referee love day. It's like my favorite.
best.
I'm always just like, it's the best. So shout out to you guys, and I'm always like, kudos to that. But kind of going, if I can, back to Lori's question about the coaching, and if it's politically incorrect, feel free not to answer it. But I've noticed there's a trend of a lot of U.S. past players who are getting their license from UEFA instead of US soccer. So whatever you guys want to talk about, it's just been something that I've noticed. So why is that?
So I had a conversation. I've actually stopped and started the A license with US soccer twice. The first one was there was a family thing going on and it just didn't work logistically. Okay, no problem. Cool. I'm going to reset and do it again for the next time the course starts. And this was last year, talk about summer of soccer, I went to LA to work with Fox Sports around Copa America and the Euros. And I had to miss one in-person trip to go. So I couldn't go in person for a 1-week thing with US soccer. They're like, then you can't take the course. I was already 2 weeks into the course, already, doing all my Zoom meetings and getting everything going. And then they told me that I couldn't do it. I'm like, but I'm actually probably consuming more soccer than everybody here combined. And I'm talking about it on television, so I get held to my words at a different level than maybe others. And I'm analyzing the game, and they just couldn't make an exception for me because they didn't have to make an exception for everybody. So I understand that. What I didn't understand was why there wasn't room for a person that has playing experience within their program in particular, why there wasn't a course that maybe was trying to accommodate others that were outside of the coaching sphere. Because right now, when I was in the course, every single person in there was coaching full-time already. And I was kind of handcuffed because I didn't have access to a team on a regular basis. I couldn't get on the field regularly. Now, I had set up some stuff with the Sac Republic and the San Francisco Glens, and everybody's being very kind for letting me use their teams for various things that I needed to complete. But it wasn't like it was my own team that I could put my own fingerprints and stamps on. So I ask them, U.S. Soccer, like, why isn't there a court? I could call a whole bunch of people that are in a similar space as me. And maybe we can, instead of making it like a 10 to 12 month course, let's make it 18 months. And then we can kind of figure out different ways to try to make that work and try to, I assume, and they told me as much, that you want your former players to come back through the system and to learn your methodologies and your ideas of how we should be growing the game that's very specific to North America. And they said, yeah, we should have that, but they don't. And they're very hard line on what you can and can't do. If you miss one in person, you're out. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to save my money. I'm out. And as I started to talk and hear more from others that have done the UEFA course, they're a little bit more fluid and flexible about former players in particular. So I jumped into one of their courses, and thankfully it's worked out. It's been a lot of fun so far.
Yeah, it's a really interesting conversation. And you and I we've touched on this briefly, because this is something actually when we spoke last on the phone, which I do feel like was last summer when this was occurring.
Yeah,
if
that's
that
right.
sounds about the timeline. Yeah. And you were mentioning that because you had kind of taken a pulse, it felt like, from different former players that were like, okay, do you potentially want to take your coaching badges, and we need to get a group together and then like potentially present this to U.S. Soccer, because this is going to be an ongoing issue if not. But what I find interesting is that even within these coaching badges, this is just going to help everybody, because then you're coming from a different, like an analytical aspect from coaching, for media. And so to find different avenues instead of just be like, you have to be on this path to coach, right? And also I think the thing is that we're going to continue to see, and I'm thinking of this on the women's side, as more and more players are retiring for my generation, is immediately people don't want to get into, okay, I'll use a prime example. Like the other day we were talking to Chris Whittingham and I were talking to Alyssa Nair before the game yesterday. And one of the questions that Chris Whittingham asked Alyssa was like, do you have any desire to coach after playing? She, right away, absolutely not, right? But I think what we see is, actually, that is sometimes the answer, full stop. No one's ever going to get into coaching, right? Or what we see is, not right now. Because I've been on the field, it feels too close. I need some separation in some way. Some people want to jump into media and see what that looks like. And then also that feels too close to the game, because then you have to start to critique. Regardless, what I'm saying is that what I think we're going to see is a lot of players, maybe not right away want to get into coaching, but take a similar path to what you're saying, Jimmy, which is you've been in media. You also have these other interests that excite you, but then also in a way to give back, right? And there needs to be some flexibility as the game continues to grow.
I agree with you. The game's going to grow quicker if you have your most experienced players get back into the game. Now maybe when this new project in Atlanta, right, the whole development center and training center is fully in 100 miles an hour and everybody's go, like you could start to bring in a listener and say, hey, here's like we want you to touch every area of this. You're just going to shadow a couple people in different areas, whether it could be coaching, could be scouting, could be front office stuff, right? We need as many soccer people in big time positions as possible so they can impact and influence how the game should look at all levels. So I think you could potentially do that. And then once Alyssa's like, actually, that was really fun, I like shadowing that person, then you could be like, cool, we're going all in. We're going to push you into that space. And we're going to try to get you as much experience and education there as possible, and then you're on your way. We'll try to. I don't know. There's what's the word I'm looking for? Like consulting firms or headhunters, right? Where hey, we got a listener. She's got all this experience now. She'd actually be great to go work with Tampa Bay Sun and push out this Christina Uncle person who's having an absolute shocker.
Tampa Bay who?
So is there so there could be. There's a whole, I think, area that we haven't tapped into that U.S. Soccer, listen, I know they got their hands full with a gajillion different things, but this one could be really advantageous and keep some of the big names involved in the game in a meaningful way so they can maintain their big name status, and that way we continue to grow the game and the visibility of the game, which is very important.
Well, I'm just going to jump in real quick, Christina, because I just want to say, and I think what sometimes happens is you're like, as a player, it's like, oh, there's like media, or there's coaching. And there's so many. And so like what I appreciate about you, and just like in terms of like your creativity, Jimmy, and just like a kind of what I would consider forward thinking, is that there's so many different avenues and that could look very different. It's just about now it's like, who are you having these conversations with to push? Because sometimes, yes, if there's so much going on, we forget about this other aspect that will generate so much more attention and excitement for former players.
Yeah, I think it would be great to have a program like that. Go ahead, Christina. Sorry.
No. It's crazy to hear you guys say that, because I think it's just a consistent theme. And that's something that I think we would all probably wholeheartedly, and we know a lot of people running US soccer now. And I do think, it's the first time for me in my career with US soccer that I'm looking forward to the next 10, 15 years. Because I do think there are going to be some significant changes. And obviously there's a lot of political stuff and blah, 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 blah. But like, the same thing happened to the referees. And I thought all along that the players actually had a shortcut in the coaching educational standpoint, that you guys were getting a little bit of exceptions to rules. So I actually used you guys, because for me, when I stepped off the FIFA panel and I was doing the referee analysis stuff, for me to be a ref coach mentor, to be able to train and educate, and we have new leadership in the referee side right now, which is a breath of fresh air. But it's like, they made me go back to the grassroots side. So I couldn't even give somebody an assessment to go from 8 to 7. So I'm like, great, I get to tell everyone that some of the highest level football what the rule decisions are. But you're saying I have to go and take a week-long course, and I have to go do an entire year of education and training to be able to even just give somebody advice on the grassroots pitch. Like, it blew my mind. I was like, I was a FIFA for 7 years for US soccer. Like, how do we like accelerate that where it can go and I can give, and by giving someone an assessment, not even at the pro game, like the first level that you go from grassroots to saying, I'm interested in. So it sounds like there was a consistent theme, and that's what it was kind of confusing. I was like, why is everyone going to UEFA for their licensing? Because back to Jimmy, your point, that's not teaching the philosophy of what we want North American football to look like, right? Where we want our theme or what our game looks like, or the elements or our philosophy. And while we're establishing ourselves as still a football country, around the world and what we have to bring to that, then that doesn't allow us to really talk about like, what is our philosophy as players? Like, what is our philosophy for the women's national team? What is their philosophy? Most importantly right now is the men's national team. With everything that's going on. And that makes a lot of sense now, because Jimmy, I know you put your application when they were looking for a coaching staff for the U.S. men's national team for the head coach. I know you put your application in.
This is where Lori and I really started to become close friends, was I believe Tom Sermani was kind of the coach of the women's national team back, I don't know, not for very long, 2012, 2013. And so there was like this 5 or 6 months where there was no name attached to the team. And so I went to a training at Rentschler Fields because the women were playing against, I can't remember. And it was the night before a game or 2 nights before a game. And I had this sheet put on official U.S. soccer letterhead that I had signed. Actually, I signed it, but it said from Sunil Gulati with the signature. And I interviewed Alex, Kelly, Megan, and they're like, hey, so I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but Sunil signed this and said I'm your new coach, and I don't know how you feel about it. And Alex is like, really? Is this for real? I had Alex. She's the only one that actually bit for a little bit. And it was great. And then from there, that's when I went on my full court press to make Megan Rapinoe my BFF, and that's when me and Lori got into some beef, because she is technically Megan's BFF. But and so we had some really fun, some interactions. I don't even know, Lori, she might be on mute.
Lori's on mute. I think you muted her on purpose so she can't fight you.
I don't know.
No, I've been over here saying like all kinds of talking shit over here. But no, I was saying Jimmy tried to take Meg to prom. I was pissed. I did. Like,
there's an amazing prom picture of me and Megan. It was great.
It was great. Oh, pure shenanigans.
Yeah, so that's where kind of our and Lori, I knew Lori was a real one right from the get-go, because it took her about 0.1 second to understand what we were doing and the type of fun we were having. And that just leveled up the whole experience. So I appreciate you, Lori Lindsay.
I was also, when I was on mute, talking shit about how it was a missed opportunity that you weren't our coach.
I know. God, that would have been so much fun. So much fun. We would have had a lot of laughs. It would have been great. Yeah.
It would have been a lot of publicity stunts you guys would have been doing, Lori.
Well, that too.
Oh, yeah. It would have been amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I know, Jimmy, thank you for your time. But before you leave, I do want to ask one question, because we talked about it briefly last week, and it's LA Galaxy. All right. Put your coach's hat on. LA Galaxy lost again this weekend. And we were saying, what do you need to do to reset that locker room? What do you got to do from a GM perspective? What do you got to do? Like, what would you do as the coach for LA Galaxy?
So I had the chance to talk to Greg Vanney at the coaches convention before the season kicked off in February. And actually, one of the big questions I asked him was about the development of American players. Because last year there were no Americans in the best 11 in MLS. And there were no Americans in the top 15 in goals. And there were no Americans in the top 15 in assists. So what are we doing to help promote the creative, attack-minded American player? Now, Diego Luna has started to emerge as a player that can score goals and be trusted to drive an attack, and that's been great to see for both club and country. And I'm very excited about his future. But even then, Greg, off stage, because I asked him this on stage, of course, he obviously talked about the rise of youth academies and how that's coming along, and it's just a matter of time before all that gets produced. No problem. But he also had mentioned that now, with salary caps being the way that they are, they had to make some tough decisions. So you lose a guy like, especially with Ricky Puig being hurt, like Joveljic goes to Kansas City. I know Yoshida and Marco Reus said afterwards that they were surprised that, hey, we just won the championship and we have to take less salary the next year. So you already kind of had some things going on behind the scenes, some machinations that were like, this might not go well for the Galaxy. And then, you run into Ricky Puig was such a driver of that team, and without him being the main catalyst, it was always going to be a little bit difficult. I think teams are figuring out, Gabriel, I'm giving you a long answer because that's what I do. But Peck and Paintsel are going to be a little bit more of known quantities, so you can defend them a little bit better. And even though, obviously, over the course of the season, you should be able to do that anyway. So last year, you should have been able to figure it out. They just were playing a little bit better. The team was playing a little bit better. And even though they didn't give up any shots and still lost somehow to Sporting Kansas City on the weekend, they were the better team. They created more. They had more possession. I actually thought tactically they looked pretty good and looked a little bit more like themselves. Now they just got to hit the back of their net. And that's where, as a coach, you can't let your mood or the mood of the team swing based on results. If you're doing all the right things, that will eventually pan out. As I coached my daughter's U14 team, and what I tell my girls is, if we make good soccer decisions consistently on both sides of the ball, the results are going to take care of themselves. So don't even get caught up in wins or losses. Like, let's just focus on what we can focus on, which is making good soccer decisions, both individually and collectively. And the Galaxy, honestly, as simple as that sounds, even though I'm using it for a U14 girls team, it's the same type of philosophy that you should, like, if we're making good decisions consistently, things are going to work out. And they have last season as champions to lean on. But yeah, right now it feels dire for the Galaxy, which is crazy that you could be at the highest of highs 5 months ago, and now you're at the bottom of the table in MLS. That's MLS for you, though. You got to love it.
That's MLS. Every game matters. Jimmy, Conradinho, you matter.
Thank
you for showing
Appreciate
up on the
that.
Soccer
I feel
Podcast.
Seen. Thank you, Christine. I feel seen.
We love you to pieces.
Bye. See ya.
Have a great one. Have a
Bye.
great summer
Lori.
soccer.
Love you too. See you guys.
See ya.
See ya. Soccer moms rock. Get out of here.
I'm out of here.
He is the best. He does
good.
everything. When I entered into this world, he was also probably one of the kindest out of the gate. He's like, here's how you do this. Here's that, like a great content creator, all of this stuff. I was like, whoa, I do not have time to do that. He's the one, he's like, I could teach you how to do TikTok when we were at the Women's Euros. I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing TikTok. I think I did 2. So if you go back on my TikTok, I think there's only like 2 posts. It's like us and Emma Hayes.
He described himself the best because of, like, in terms of giving us examples of like what it looks like going from UEFA coaching badge, and he'll document that, then to go to what do you say? TST, or maybe something else in
TST,
between there.
yeah.
Something else in between there. And then
Champions League for CBS,
Champions League,
yeah.
and then TST, yep. And then obviously to Blaine, Minnesota later on. But like, I think that he is the best at that, where he can dissect the game and have a very analytical brain about it, but then also bring it into, like, when he was at TST and documented that last few years when we were with him as well. He is so fun. He's in your face. It's like jokes galore. He's talking trash. But then you go to Champions League and he's going to break it down in a way that's going to be entertaining for the fans, but also still analyze it as like a former player. So I think he has one of the biggest ranges we see in media. That's really challenging to do. But he has the personality and the knowledge to be able to intersect all of those, which I think is something special within this field.
Yeah. Oh, I hope we don't lose him fully to coaching, but we'll see about that. We'll see about that. This is a shout out to like TST, right? So, okay, for those who don't know, Lori's team put in all of the North Carolina college players last year and won TST.
That's not true.
Yes, I'm
That is
bitter.
not true.
Yes, I'm bitter. My team lost to them in the semifinals, so that's why I'm a bit bitter here. But are you guys are still playing again this year, right? Are you part of the team? What's going on?
I'm the sporting director. So I decided not to play this year, and now I'm the sporting director. So helping put the team together. We got our team intact. We're ready to go. Very pumped. It's going to be fun because they've expanded the amount of teams, the field this year, so it makes it even more challenging for everybody. But right on par with the growth of the game, and obviously how fun TST is. You know that. It's like a unique event. It's a fun event, and it's not like 11v11 soccer at all.
No, it is not. That we learned. I think we had like a yellow card accumulations and an injury with Formiga, and we were down a person, and we're like, okay, now we know why we needed like 4 more subs on the bench. So just a quick shout out to TST. It's a fun soccer tournament in the summer. It's like a 5v5 setup, and just once you start watching it, it makes sense. But go watch Lori's team. If I'm going to lose to someone, if my team's going to lose to someone, I want them to lose to Team USA and Lori.
Let's
they're
go.
in it. Prize for $1 million. Let's see. Maybe we bring the soccer podcast USA to TST. We'll see what we can do there.
Let's go. We have to. We have to.
That would actually be a lot of fun. And now they don't have any duties there. Yeah, maybe I do that. But anywho, all right. What's on tap for you this weekend?
What do I have? I have Louisville versus Gotham Friday night. And then I'm shooting down to Orlando for Orlando, New England for Major League Soccer.
Ooh, what day is that one? I might go
Saturday.
pop over.
Yeah, Saturday.
Okay. Got it. No, I'm in Lexington. Yeah, we got a game in Lexington. So popping over to Louisville, however you say that, but popping over to Lexington, seeing the players, kind of go out, kind of having a girls trip.
Our Louisville game is Friday. So depending on, but that's still, it's still like what? What's the difference there? 4 hours? Actually, I don't know.
Wait. What, between Lexington and Louisville?
Yeah, what is it?
Oh, I'm actually going to be in Louisville.
On Friday?
And I've been, on Friday.
That's when I'm going to be there.
Okay, I land at 7. Maybe I can pick up the kiddo and drive in real quick and watch the game. I've been meaning to. Bev Giannis has been on the call with the soccer podcast USA. I love her, and I've been meaning to stop by. Look at this. Sorry, everyone. You guys are experiencing us putting our plans together for the weekend. And this is how we do it.
To see if we actually do meet up. Dun, dun, dun. You will not know until the weekend.
Exactly. But thanks all for joining us for the Soccer Podcast USA. See you guys here next week. Remember the 12-person pass. Share the thing. We will get you to your local soccer game that you want, and look forward to doing that. So thanks, Lori, for your time here today, and let's see if we meet up. Don't forget to follow us on the Soccer Podcast USA as we continue to bring you big names and bold opinions. That's it for our show. See you later.